Welcome to Board Game Binge, the place where we bring you bite-sized, bingeable board game content from across the industry. I am your host, James Staley, and in this episode, we're chatting with Stefan vander Heijen, a game programmer who's exploring the online world of Board Game Arena. Stefan, welcome to the binge. How you doing, my friend?
Thank you. No, fine.
All right, so
And
just
you?
before I'll get you to say your name with the proper pronunciation because I absolutely butchered it. So how do we pronounce your name?
Well, in Holland we say Stefan vander Heijden.
So Stefan
Alrighty.
vander Heijden. Okay,
Yes.
I'm getting closer. I
Yeah.
apologize for my crazy Canadian accent, but thank you so
Well,
much for agreeing to come on the podcast. We're going to get into Board Game Arena in a little bit because I find it so fascinating. And I know this is kind of a new kind of venture for you as well. But I was just saying before we went on the air, this is something that I have been absolutely fascinated with for the past number of years. I've made multiple attempts to try to get into Board Game Arena with my titles and have failed up until now when you and I have met, which is I've been so happy that you reached out and you and I were able to connect. So I want to get into that process in a little bit as well. But you've got a fascinating story that started even way before that, getting all the way back to kind of how you got into gaming. So let's start there. How
yeah.
did you get into gaming, my friend?
Well, came from a relatively small family. I have one brother and one sister, and my father loved playing card games. So that's what we did when I was a little small child. And from there, I was interested in games in general. But then came puberty and women, and you know it. So then other things start. And the end of the 90s, last century, we started organizing board game evenings with our friends. And obviously, Risk was on the table. It's always a good game to play. And Cluedo, I guess it's called Clue
Mm-hmm.
in America and in
Yeah.
Canada. And then came along the first real board game called Settlers of Catan.
Yeah.
And that got me quite hard. So I jumped into an online environment from the game is called Kolonisten van Catan in
Mm.
Holland. So we had a website about the game, and we had a forum on it with people meeting, joining up in games. And that's how I met the designer of the game, the legendary Klaus Steuber,
Oh, that's crazy.
who passed away
Yeah.
only recently. So that's a pity. But I met up a few times with him, translating his Prof Easy educational videos to the Dutch language. So it's only in everything is in German,
Mm.
obviously. And he was also really very exciting to have it translated to Dutch. So that's where we met on Spiel in Essen. You probably know that.
Yes.
And yeah, from there we had a meeting of 4 or 5 things, and so yeah, it was fun. And obviously he gave me some of his games, also even older games where I never knew they existed, like Drüber und Drunter. Don't know if you know that
I
one.
don't know that one. No, what's that one?
Well, it's yeah, it is a more or less a card game in which you play tiles on top each other and
Mm.
then ban your opponents and so. But it didn't match Catan, and even it got even better when I got the City of Knights expansions, um, and from there. Well, we went on with one of my other friends, which I also met online. We created an online playing environment for playing Settlers, which was called Wanna Game. and some other Dutch guys created an online software version of the game. So I created a messenger so people can connect to each other, say, well, I want to play a game, and yeah, that was fun. And we did a ranking and that sort of stuff. So, um,
How did you connect
and
with
then
like Klaus? So like, did he see kind of like the fan page that you guys had created and he reached out to you, or did you guys literally reach out to him just kind of cold and say, hey, like, how can we?
yeah, I reached out to him
Wow.
because on his websites there were the Prof Easy explanation pages,
Mm.
and we got more and more questions of people who heard the name Catan, but it's not well for now. But back then it was a very heavy game to start learning. So we got a lot of questions about what should we do now and what is the reason for this card. And so I reached out to Klaus and I said, to the webmaster, not to Klaus directly in first instance. Can I translate these? Well, please do, blah, blah. And yeah, from there on, we got connected. I met him and his oldest son, who is still in the company now, and
Hmm.
his youngest son, Benjamin. I met him only once, because he was really relatively young back then. But
Yeah.
well, we had some fun times and fun dinners, and
Did you
we
ever
even played a
chance
game of.
to actually play with
Sorry?
him? Did you get a chance to actually
Yeah,
play?
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
wow.
yeah. I lost.
Wow. You lost. I wonder why.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
one of
Not
those
even
ones that
intentionally.
maybe you throw the game in those cases, right? Just to stay in the good graces of the creator.
No, he was a very kind, very
Yeah.
soft-hearted man. He was really nice to be with, and he was always correct. And well, I really liked him. Yeah,
I wonder, did he have a feel for his impact on the industry? Like, did he fully kind of grasp, how much of like a seed he was for a lot of the industry growing kind of from that point? I mean, I've had now you're guest number 330 on this podcast, and I would say if I went back through every single person I talked to and saying kind of what was the key game, probably 75% of them would say that Settlers of Catan was kind of
yeah,
the first gateway game that got them into the hobby. Did he fully appreciate that, do you think?
yeah. He did.
Yeah.
He loved when people play his games and liked playing his games. He was also very enthusiastic about everything we initiated. Well, back in when was the tsunami in when was it on
Oh, in
in
the
Christmas
tsunami?
Day?
Yeah.
In Christmas Day?
Yeah.
Well, we from the colonist website, or settlers website, thought we must do something to help those people.
Yeah.
So I reached out to Klaus Tower and said, "Hello, Klaus. You probably heard about the tsunami, blah blah, and we want to do an auction to sell stuff, Catan stuff."
Yeah.
So he directly was very enthusiastic, and he sent me loads of things. It were, well, tiles with his signature on it,
Oh
here
my
a
gosh.
3D version of Catan, and
Yeah.
you just get it in the auction and get it going. And he was also really excited. We had I don't know the amount. It was even in guilders. We don't have that anymore. We have
Mm.
euros now, but
Yeah.
it was around 6,000 guilders, which is about 3,000 euros.
Wow.
So that was really nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
Being able to
uh,
give back like that, that's, I mean, I think it shows, from your side, the kindness that you clearly have in trying to help other people out, but being able to pull in others and, pull that family in and say, hey, do you guys want to be part of this? And them gladly participating, I think kind of speaks to his impact on this industry,
yeah.
right? Would you say in the Netherlands is there many cafes, like board game cafes and things like that, like as a culture, like in this industry, are you seeing a lot of cafes that people
It's
go out to,
starting
or
to come.
yeah.
It's going to come more and more. We have even community centers here, a
Hmm.
few in the areas here, and in three of those, there is a monthly board game evening,
Yeah.
like tonight at 8 o'clock. So, well, I probably won't be going because I'm here with you, but
Yeah.
otherwise perhaps I'll chip in. And well, we get there are 30, 40 people on that sort of evening
Yeah.
just playing. The more uh, well, simpler, more accessible board games, but every now and then a real board game comes at the table and it's fun to play. Yeah.
I'm amazed. Like I've had this happen recently as well on some of our titles where I've actually had people reach out and say, "Hey, can we get a a Dutch translation of this game?" So
All right.
the demand seems to be increasing, right? Certainly
Yeah.
from the Netherlands. And when I was at
Yeah.
Essen 2 years ago, ran into tons of people who were there from the Netherlands, which I thought was really cool to kind of see that representation coming from your
Yeah.
country. How did you then get into Board Game Arena? So this is how you and I met, which I find fascinating. And for people that I think I've talked about this in the podcast in the past, but I'll give kind of my experience really quickly. This is something where I forget how many users they have. I should have looked it up before but it's millions, right? They've got millions of people on this platform,
No.
and I've got like friends that we have a once a month we have a game night that is online through Board Game Arena.
All right.
The assisted play in Board Game Arena and how it kind of has you on kind of automated movements and so forth is very different than say Tabletop Simulator where you're having to virtually pick the pieces up with your hand and
Yeah.
move them. Board Game Arena, for those who don't know, everything is automated, so you just have to worry about playing the game. You don't have to worry about trying to
Yeah.
maybe make a mistake. All the rules, everything are all kind of within the guardrails, which and then visually a lot of these games on there look very similar, almost identical to what you'd have as a table experience in front of you on the table. And I would say a perfect example of this would be Earth. Earth's one of my favorite games by Inside Up Games, another Canadian company here. Their version on Board Game Arena is amazing, and it takes a game that can be a bit beefy sometimes, depending on who you're playing it
Mhm.
with, and it really automates a lot of the stuff where traditionally maybe people get caught up with analysis paralysis. It kind of says, here's your three options, kind of pick one, right? And so it does a lot of that kind of automation as well. I've tried for the past 5 years to get my games on a Board Game Arena. I've had three prior attempts, two where I've actually paid people and they literally took the money and ran and didn't create anything. And, so I was a bit soured from that perspective. And so I was very appreciative to be able to meet you and work towards some of our games and people that are playtesters can play them now, right? So we've got Queen of Scots
Yep.
on there. We've got Bunny Drops. We have Hamsters versus Hippos on there as well. And you're working
Yep.
right now on Tanks But No Thanks. All
Yep.
gateway games, all great games that are very simple to play and you can learn in less than 5 minutes. But this process, I've never made it to the stage, so it's kind of cool to be part of this stage. And this is where I said to you, like, I got to get you on as a guest because I want to dig into this. I want to understand it, and I think some of my audience would probably want to understand it as well. So, how did you get into in that preamble? Now, how did you yourself get into Board Game Arena, both as a player and then ultimately as a programmer?
Well, first off, besides the online Catan version we have, there was another Dutch guy I know who also had created a small website for creating online games,
Yeah.
which was it started out with a Catan card game, the two-player version, which you had to take offline due to license issues, LS, and some other games like Yambo, one of my all-time favorites, and some other stuff. And then as it grew and grew and grew, people started asking questions about, "Oh, I want to also play that game. I want to play on that game, and when will it be available?" But it was a solo project of one person. Um, so he couldn't create that many games that people asked for. And from there, Board Game Arena came into the perspective of a lot of players from that side, mine too. And from there off, I started playing games and exploring different games because, well, it's nice to play different games and learn about different strategies. And then Board Game Arena opened up their development platform for everybody to start using. It was already, but it was very difficult to get started with.
Yeah.
They simplified it, and now it is really, really accessible uh, when you know a little bit about programming. A
Yeah.
little bit about, well, I've been a programmer for 35 years, so
Were
I
you
know my way
classically
around.
trained in programming? Like, did you take it in school
Yeah,
or all self-taught
yeah,
or?
yeah. No, I was educated in programming. It's also my real daytime job. So it's a small step to start programming on
Yeah.
your favorite hobby.
And what in your
Uh,
day job, what do you program? Like what's your what do you is it games or is it something else that you're
no, no, no. I have there is well, how shall I explain that? It's a platform for self-employed workers
Oh, cool.
to register their hours they work for a
Oh, like a
project
freelance.
and get, yeah, more or less, but
Yeah.
it's more for our registration and invoicing and sort of stuff, automatic. And it's also it has an app, so
That's
people
cool.
can fill in their hours on the job, and it's really low end use to get it fluently working and that stuff. So that's my main job. Well, that's my only job, basically. And so I know my way around programming. And I started my first game on Board Game Arena a few years ago. One of the games I also really liked when I was a lot younger. It's Pyramids. It doesn't even exist anymore.
Mm.
So I created a complete game and working and no problem. But BGA or Board Game Arena said we're not going to publish it yet because one of the main reasons for them to, of requirements to publish it is the license which you get from the designer or
Yeah.
the publishing company. And since that game isn't published anymore, no one has the license, so the game didn't come online. And from there on, I explored which other game do I know really well and do I like? And so I started with Stefan. Yeah, this is also a Dutch game designer.
Yeah.
Uh, so I implemented his Amazon's game, and that was quite a bit of work, a lot more work than I thought intentionally. And from there on, I started creating more games just because it's fun and I like the games and I like creating games with nice graphics and
Yeah.
easy accessible. I love playing bigger game like Ark Nova or
Yeah.
Cascadia, whatever. And they are really great to play on Board Game Arena since indeed Board Game already does everything for you. So you don't have to think about how many points did I gain? Can I play this game? Do I meet all the requirements? Because otherwise you can't play it. But for myself, I play, I have a constant of 60 to 80 turn-based games running.
Oh, wow.
And
Holy
yeah,
crap.
yeah. And a lot of them are really low-level games, just like uh, Hamsters and Hippos or
Yeah.
Mets or the really low, not really fun games to play, and it looked very nice. And that's why I played them a lot.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that's
that's
crazy.
just the kind of games I like and to like to create because I like creating and developing games, but I don't want to spend 21 weeks on one game. So
Yeah, something like an Arc Nova, I gotta imagine that
yeah,
the build on that would be quite significant. There's probably a
years.
team working on that, I would imagine,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah. I reached out to Board Game Arena also because I would also love to have the card game of Settlers on BGA.
Yeah.
But that is also really, really, really much work to get that. It has 150, 200 different cards which interact with all requirements and stuff. It's really a lot of work.
I guess how
So
the logic keeps changing, right? So for each item, if that item has multiple, for lack of a better word, kind of logic gates it has to go through, depending on how it interacts with other cards, and then you times that by say 50 cards,
yeah,
like these things can become quite robust, right?
yeah, yeah. That's also the case in Arc Nova. It has
Mm,
also so many cards and so many requirements, and each requirements you have to program obviously,
yeah.
but yeah, yeah, you have to think in front of every requirement you have to meet to be able to create it. So that's quite a lot of work.
How do you approach this? Do you map it out first? Like, do you kind of like literally get a piece of paper and map out kind of how you're going to approach the programming? Is there like a stepped approach you go through? Like, how do you kind of tackle something like this?
Well, I don't even know the English word for that one. I, I think in images, so
Mm,
I don't think in words, so I think in images. Um, Most of the time when I get the rules of the game and the graphic of the game, the first thing I do is uh, get it to look like it should work on the table.
mm,
That's the starting point, and creating all the cards and all the requirements, and then thinking about what requirements do we have to meet, and how can I easily check if requirements are met. But it's really just an ongoing progress. So
yeah.
not really on. I'm not a pen guy. No.
For those listening, I think I'm going to go through the process really quickly of how to set up because this is something I went through at the time. On boardgamearena.com, if there's a publisher out there that is interested in getting their game up and they don't know how to approach this, in the footer of Board Game Arena, there's links. There's one that goes to, I believe it literally says publishers. That
Yeah.
will take you to I believe, a studio account, which you then create. Again, there's no cost to create a studio account. This is what I did. Once you have a studio account, then there's an area you can go to just to look at available licenses, right? And you can add an available license. And what they mean by that is that they have this process they go through where Board Game Arena says, okay, you in writing need to grant us the license to host this on our platform, right? And you can revoke that at any time. It doesn't have to. It's not in perpetuity, but for as long as it's up there, you're agreeing that yeah, you've licensed them to have that up there. They've got two other options. They've got one option where it's just you can choose whether you want that license to be free to play for anybody, or there's also the option where there's like a revenue sharing kind of thing they've set up based on the amount of hours that people spend in a month on your particular game, and as a percentage of revenue that gets shared out. And that's another model you can go towards. From my perspective, I think a lot of the small publishers just want to get the exposure and then use that exposure to help
Yeah.
them at retail and on Amazon and so forth. So I went the exposure route. Through there, what you do is you say, okay, here's the game, right? And then it
Yeah.
literally just links it to your Board Game Geek listing. And so they can verify it's an actual game. They can verify you're actually the publisher. They send you a link just to reconfirm that you are in fact the publisher and you grant that license. You click go. And then it goes onto a list, right? And this is a massive list. There's hundreds of games on this list. And there's some games that have been on
Yep.
there literally for years. And then it's up to people like Stefan who will go through that list and see if there's something in there that might be interesting that he might want to tackle, right? So you have the whole community of programmers that will go through and they'll say, this is a game I know, or maybe this is one that seems interesting. And from there, they reach out to the publisher and say, hey, I see you've got this listed as an available license. I'd like to take a shot at this. And then you dialogue back and forth offline by email and transferring assets and graphics and things like that. And you kind of have the dialogue. Is that kind of how you see it from your end as well? Is that a fair kind of recap?
Yeah, well, indeed.
Yeah. The part I found interesting that I didn't know, and this is where you open my eyes, is even once it's programmed, right? So once it's actually in Board Game Arena, in the studio, so you as a publisher and the programmer can kind of say, work back and forth, and let's take Queen of Scots as an example, right? So you and I went back and forth, and I play test and say, okay, now it's working, right? The rules are working exactly as they should. But even at that point, it doesn't go on to open to the public, right? So there's a couple other stages there. So talk to us through kind of what the stages are after you've kind of finished it.
Yeah, there are, first there is a development environment in which only real developers who have access to that project can play it.
Yeah.
So since I only have one project which I created with two people, it's basically only me. And when I think everything is done, the game is in, the rules are great, the requirements are met, then I can request the so-called alpha status, which when it's granted, opens the game to a group of co-developers or people who think probably know a little about programming and like to play games and know a lot about rules and stuff. And they start playing your alpha version. When they come up to a problem, they do a bug report, which comes to me in this case. And when they played it several times, they get a question from the automated system from Board Game Arena, which basically asks, do you think this game works as it should? And when they say yes, they get one
vote, I guess, right?
Review.
Yeah, review. Okay.
Yeah. And when you have 10 reviews, you can request the beta version. And that's even more exciting because then it can be played by everyone on Board Game Arena. And that is indeed a lot of people.
Yeah.
And depending on the game, I have some games which are played 10, 15 times a week or so. But I also have games where I have a few hundred per week.
Wow.
After the beta phases, there is no clear requirement when it will be published for real. That's not even clear to me. So,
and what's the length of time, like in the alpha? Like, because this surprised me too. Like, how long will something usually stay in alpha?
Well, probably some of games never go beyond alpha status because Board Game Arena states you must have 10 people saying the game is good to go. Before you can get that from 10 people, 10 people have to play the game more than 3 times. Otherwise, they don't even grant that access.
Yeah.
And not all the games get that going. That's basically it. When the game is known to a broader audience, then it's relatively quick. Or when the game is from a greater publisher, it also is quicker. But when a small or a self-employed game, it might take some time. Yeah.
I'm surprised there's not like a group out there offering a third-party service of almost alpha reviewers, where they're a team of like 20 people that potentially get hired to go and do the requirements of playing each of these, playing 3 times each, making sure it's good, giving a check mark so it can kind of push it to the beta version. Like, I'm surprised that service doesn't exist, and maybe it does. I just haven't found it. I know the requirements to be a reviewer are quite robust as well. You're saying I think they had to have played 50 different titles in the Board Game Arena platform, right?
Yeah.
And I think is the number around 700 games or something crazy like that. Like you
Wow.
had to have played like 700 games.
Yeah.
So those two stats. I have one friend. I went through all the friends I knew. I literally had one who was almost there. She was over the 700, but she was like about, I think it was 14 games shy. So her and I just started playing every night. We play a couple games just to kind of push it to the 50. So she'd become a reviewer, and now she's become a reviewer. But it is, it's not like just anybody can go in and say, yeah, this is good to go. Like it is a very small group of people that are, for lack of a better word, qualified to review the games,
Well,
right?
not really. The group is quite. I'll just check it for you. How many people? I think the reviewer group is about 1,400 people.
Out of millions, that's still pretty small,
Yeah,
right?
indeed.
And if you
Out
think
of millions,
yeah,
yeah.
if you think of the number of games in alpha too, right? So anybody's listening, if you have those stats and your reviewer stat, reach out to me. I could use your help. I'll throw that out there too. But yeah, it is fascinating and good for Board Game Arena. I know that COVID allowed them to grow exponentially, right? So a lot of people were stuck at home, and it gave them a way to still socialize with others and keep their game nights going. And it's grown ever since, and the quality of the games on there and what I mean by quality of games is quality of the programming that represents accurately what you would have in a live experience. I think they're unparalleled. Like they have nailed it. You can play across platforms, so you could be on your computer, someone else could be on their phone, someone else could be on a tablet. They do have audio synchronicity, I guess, in there too, where you can talk through the platform. I haven't had the greatest success with that. So typically what my play group does is we have our Discord channel running in parallel.
Right.
So we're talking and we can see each other through Discord. And then we're through Board Game Arena, we're actually doing the playing. But for anybody that's not playing Board Game Arena right now, I would strongly encourage you to check out the platform. If you're a gamer, you'll absolutely love it. It is an absolute treat. And friend me, quite frankly, Tin Robot Games. I'm there under Tin Robot. You'll see the picture of our logo, and so you can easily find me if I'm online. Reach out. Let's play a game. Yeah.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Stefan, so what is your plan from here? Like, so you've got your day job. You're doing this as a hobby. Have you put some thought behind where you want to go in this industry, or kind of what your overall game plan is?
No, not really. I've created about 20 games now,
Yeah.
from which one really released, 4 or 5 in beta version, and the rest is also alpha version.
Yeah.
I'm actually trying to not jump into any game I like to program, because it does cost a lot of time.
Yeah.
But I like programming, so I'll just keep on doing it. When a game comes up, I thought, well, that sounds like a fun game to create.
Yeah.
I'm just going to create it. And obviously, like each real board game guy, I have some thoughts about creating a game with different strategies, because I played that much different games. There are a lot of strategies and a lot of mechanics which I know,
Yeah.
and I like to combine some, but that's still just an idea for now.
And that's what board game design is, isn't it? Is taking all the ideas and concepts that are out there, taking a theme and combining them into something that's kind of new and different. And I always say to people who are in game design, just play as many games as you can, because you're going to learn something new that you might not have even know. You don't know what you don't know, right? So you're going to learn something that you hadn't been exposed to, and that might trigger another idea of something you can build into a game. On a personal level, I want to thank you for your help. You've been so kind to Tin Robot Games, and the one that I think I was most appreciative of was probably the Queen of Scots. This was a game that's been in my family for over 100 years. It's a game that my grandmother had taught me when I was a kid. For her 102nd birthday, we had launched that on Kickstarter as a little celebration of life for her. She's no longer with us, but having that memory now and that experience that I can share with people around the world in a digital format means more to me than you can possibly imagine. So I definitely want to thank you for that. And I want to wish you, my friend, all the best in this coming year. I can't wait to see where we land on some of these games. If there are people out there that are on Board Game Arena that have some pretty high stats in terms of number of games played, as well as number of times played, so number of titles plus number of actual physical games they've actually played, please reach out to me, ping me. I'd love to get you as a reviewer, and maybe we can push some of our alpha titles out into the beta phase so more people can check them out.
Yeah,
all right,
they're really worth it. So I like all games because they're really accessible, really easy to play, and fun to look at. That I can't wait till my grandchildren are old enough to start playing hamsters and hippos because it's really fun.
Oh, there you go. Well, thank you so much, and I want to wish you all the best. You take care.
Yeah, you too.
Cheers, my friend.
Thank you.
Cheers. This has been an episode of the Board Game Binge podcast, hosted by James Staley, produced by James Staley and Mike Bruner, with original music by Nick Smith. If you would like to watch these interviews live, simply subscribe to our YouTube channel, Board Game Binge, and you'll get access to live interviews, giveaways, and interesting board game content from across the industry. I can't wait for you to join us. See you next time.